we're like these supercomputers where we can actually start to delete programs out of the mind and the body and to replace them with healthier ones. When you start to open your mind to all the possibilities of healing, like miracles can happen. I went to my first energy healing session in probably my late 20s after I had 2 miscarriages. And I remember going into that session, I was full of grief and I just felt awful. And I left that session almost euphoric. And I was like, I don't really understand what she did, but oh my God. If I have one wish for the entire world, it's just to say that I believe that we can live exactly how we want to live.
And if there's anything to be afraid of, it's that on your deathbed, you'll be one of the people who says, I wish I lived a life true to myself. Welcome back to the Humankinder podcast. We live in a very strange universe, and we're understanding that universe more and more and more, and our understanding of that is really starting to evolve. Some of the recent findings from quantum mechanics, which describe how the smallest little particles in our universe interact with each other and make up the fabric of reality, is showing us that at the very base layer of everything, we're all just these fields of interrelating energy. And now, Eastern traditions, which talked about energy bodies, and having physical bodies and mental bodies and emotional bodies, we're starting to see that in the West with a completely different light. Like maybe they were onto something all along. And so new modalities of psychology, of medicinal healing, of trauma work, all of these things are starting to show us how do we work with the energetic body, with the energetic version of ourselves, and go directly to the source if we want to heal, grow, and learn. And so my guest today is someone who is rediscovering these ancient practices of working with energy and energy healing and working with mind, body, spirit, and soul. And so Martina Hegarty, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Cian. It's an honour to be here.
Yeah, it really has been wonderful to meet you over the last couple of months. And when I was thinking about today's conversation, I thought the best place to start would be just for people who are a little bit new to this space or who are a little bit cynical or cautious around this whole space of healing and spirituality, how would you describe to them simply the work that you do?
That's an interesting question. It's probably something that I have been trying to answer myself for the last few years. And so in a very simplified nutshell, I'm here to help people to really peel away the layers of conditioning that we have had, whether that's from ancestral, generational conditioning, trauma, or whether it's from society or from our families. And so as we start to really wake up to who we really are, we start to realize that a lot of what we thought who we were is actually just programming and conditioning. So through my energy work, I can work on the DNA and the cellular memory. I can go into past lives. I can work with the ancestors and with your own energy body as well, with the chakras, and really start to peel away everything that you are not to help you to find out who you really are. And yeah, that's so exciting to me because when we start to tap into our innate being, that's when we start to find true purpose and happiness.
So much to unpack there. I mean, it's a fascinating topic and you've mentioned a number of different elements to it. The first question that I have is, what has all of that, what has any of that got to do with the whole area of healing? Surely I'm just sick because there's a bug in the air, there's a virus that's coming to me, there's something in my genetics, I'm just unlucky and I'm getting sick and I take a pill, I go to the doctor and that sorts it and then I keep going from there. Why are we talking about cellular memory? Why are we talking about ancestors, true selves, peeling back, conditioning? What has any of that got to do with the whole area of healing?
Gosh. So a lot of our physical ailments, they come from our emotions and from our limiting beliefs. We have been told that a lot of our ailments come from genetics. And I totally disagree. I don't believe that at all. That perhaps we have inherited something in our genetics, but that's also we've inherited the patterns and the behaviors that actually cause the illness as well. So when you start to empower yourself and realize that your mind, especially when you start to open your mind to all the possibilities of healing, like miracles can happen. So if someone believes that a medicine, if you go to the doctor and they give you something, prescribe you something to help you get better, the power of the belief in that can actually be the healing, not the medicine, if that makes sense. So if we believe that taking a supplement is good for us, that's also, really the placebo. It's the mind telling us that taking something is helping to heal our body. I'm really delving into at the moment how far that goes, and I truly believe that we're still handing our power away to another substance, whether that's a natural herb or whether it's a synthetic, pill. That the true healing actually lies within our mind, within our own belief system, and within our bodies. And so when we start to believe something different, and if you believe in the power of your own innate ability to heal, that's actually going to help you way more than anything else. And there's so many studies done on, the placebo effect and the mind, and people like Wayne Dyer. He did a lot of beautiful work on the limiting beliefs. And I remember 20 years ago listening to Wayne Dyer, and he was sharing that there was an experiment or a trial that they did where people were imagining that they were building muscle. They weren't even moving the muscle. They weren't moving the arm, and yet the muscle tone improved. So when you start to really understand the mind, body, and spirit synergy, then that's where I think healing occurs.
It's so interesting because what I'm hearing and what you're saying is that we are multidimensional beings, and what that means is that we exist on an energetic level. We also have a mind, right? And we've got thoughts, we've got beliefs in there, we've got intentions in there. We have an imagination inside us. We have a full emotional spectrum. We have these sensations in our bodies. And we have all of these different aspects of our inner world. And it seems like what you're saying is that all of those things actually matter, and that they interact with the physical body, and that this whole thing is connected in this one big thing that we call ourselves, and that if we work with those different parts, we can affect changes across the entire system. And it's not just by taking something internally, taking a pill to change a chemical in our body. We can also do that with a thought, or we can do that with an intention, and that is real. And when I was growing up, that was not the model that I was taught. And so I'd love to hear your understanding of what do you think is actually happening there for people? What are people like Wayne Dyer and people like Joe Dispenza, what are they pointing to, and what's possible for us, do you think?
So a lot of our beliefs, as you know, are in our subconscious and unconscious. So it's a lot more difficult to just say, oh, look, just change your thoughts, change your beliefs. It's trying to really understand how we're operating from the unconscious and subconscious mind as well. Just hope I'm not going off track with the question now. I'm trying to remember.
There are no tracks. There are no tracks, so go. No such thing as a tangent.
But the mind has a lot more of a role to play than we think. And, that sounds kind of, very ironic or contradictory. But the way that we're heading, I think we're starting to understand how we can actually reprogram ourselves. And so we're like these supercomputers where we can actually start to delete programs out of, the mind and the body, and to replace them with healthier ones. And that it's like giving your body a whole set of new instructions, really. We are made up of our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, and what I call the spiritual or etheric body. And I work on all 4 layers. And so sometimes a symptom can come from the mental body. Sometimes it can come from the physical body or the emotional body. So when you start to work with all 4 counterparts, and I call it the 4 counterparts of the soul, and a lot of people only operate from 3. They're not really operating from the spiritual. And I probably found that version or that part of me in my late 20s when I started. I went to my first energy healing center session, and at that point, it was like a whole other world opened up to me that I hadn't been tapping into before, and it had such a profound effect on me. So the spiritual, it's what I call the unseen. It's not the material world, so it's very difficult for people to believe in and trust and have faith in, because you can't see it, you can't prove it. Science has come a long way, and quantum physics has come a long way in proving a lot of the airy-fairy things that we thought in the past. Like they're now proving that we have an auric field and an energy body, and they're proving things about time and space that we probably would never have imagined. So I'm sure as the years go on, we will have even more discoveries. But when we start to tap into this unseen energy, that's, it incorporates perhaps past lives, incorporates working with color, working with frequencies and vibrations for our own healing. I think that's kind of how I would sum it up. It's very difficult to explain exactly what's going on. I'm not a medical doctor and I'm not a scientist, but I feel it and I trust it and I know it. So it's like sometimes I will set an intention for something, or I will energetically pick up on something, and I'm very claircognizant. So I just get this knowing. And I might even just clear something in someone's energy body, and I know that clearing, that small little thing that I've just cleared, will have a profound impact on that person's life, because that could be something that has been blocking them from progressing on their purpose or their path or healing their body or whatever it is. And I can't prove it. I can't really turn around and say, well, this is going to do that. It's really sometimes very subtle, but it's like a knowing that I get from my intuition.
Yeah, so claircognizance being that you get intuitive knowings and intuitive knowledge or intuitions about certain things that you can then work with, and they have positive effects for people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole area of what's possible for us to sense also is a very interesting place in terms of claircognizance, these knowings, clairaudience, hearing things. And rather than dismissing those things as kind of woo, it's interesting to see people now listen to those more. And I want to dive into that in a little while. But what I think would make this really practical for people would be, you mentioned those 4 different levels that we exist at. And I'd love you to think about a client who comes to you, and let's start with the emotional body, because my experience is that most people come for help when the emotions they're feeling every day are just so bad that they just can't do it anymore. It's like, I'm just so stressed, I'm so depressed, I'm so overwhelmed, and they don't necessarily connect thoughts, they don't necessarily connect beliefs, intentions, anything about the energy body, anything about their physical body. And so if someone comes to you, what sort of, talk us through the sort of emotions that they'll be experiencing, and then where would you go from there with them to explore that whole inner landscape and be a bit of an inner scientist there?
Yeah. So what I found with my call it my gifts, my healing abilities, is that in the beginning, I thought I had to really learn how to do something, that I had to learn, a process or steps or, if someone came in with depression, what do I do to help them? And what I've learned is that I actually don't have to do anything. By my presence, either online or in person, it doesn't actually matter. It's equally as good from a distance as it is in person. Should I place my hands on a person or start to work with their energy body online, is that I set the intention that whatever it is their soul is needing, they will receive. And so some of the time I actually don't even know what it is that I'm doing. And that was the biggest, probably ego sort of part that I had to really struggle with, because it's like, well, if I'm not doing something, then how do I explain charging for this session? And surely I should be doing something and, to prove that I am who I say I am. And so my lesson was to completely let the ego step aside and be that conduit, that vessel, and just put my hands on someone and trust that they are going to get what they receive. Now, in doing that as well, there is always a part of it where I can feel what's happening and I can articulate that to the client as well. So some of the session will be me channeling some messages or information for that client. A lot of the time, depression is really people that are not on track. They're not really living in alignment with their soul. And so by helping them to clear any blocks or limiting beliefs or, perhaps even emotions that are just suffocating them, that will actually help them then to start getting more clarity about what their soul wants. And they'll start tapping into their own intuition as well. And part of my gift is to activate people. So I often find that after a session, someone will become it's like I'm some kind of catalyst. And then all of a sudden they'll get a spark of inspiration. And that's all they need to start kind of heading down their path. And that brings me a lot of joy. So, am I answering the question?
Yeah. What you're doing here, at least what I'm understanding about what you're doing, is you're really meeting them where they're at, and you're acknowledging that they are a soul, or they are a spiritual being that's on a certain path. And what you're saying is just counter to what the kind of Western psychological model would say, is that whatever symptom they're manifesting, be it depression or anxiety, is not something that they just need to be taught how to cope with. So rather than saying, I'm going to teach you breathing techniques, I'm going to teach you stress reduction techniques so that you can cope with a life that's out of alignment, you're saying, what is this telling you about the way you're living or the way you're not living?
Yeah.
Right? And so what you're doing is you're using that symptom as a gateway to intuitively ask and feel out for them and kind of work out with them in partnership, what are they not listening to?
Yeah.
What are they not doing? And helping them to see that and giving them a little bit of the confidence to see that and removing any of the internal blocks. You talk about energetic blocks. Maybe there's something happening in their energy field. There's a, how you would even put this into language. Maybe you could answer it of what you actually feel when you put your hands on someone, if they are blocked in that way and it's coming out as a depression.
Yeah. So I work a lot with the heart because, interestingly enough, I think one of the probably the biggest things that I'm here as well to help people with is to start feeling. People get overwhelmed with their emotions, but they often will try and numb them with, there's so many things out there, alcohol, food, TV. They want to just try and feel better. So they'll often just try and kind of stuff down the emotions and not really feel. And so a lot of people's hearts have, put up barriers or walls. And so really helping to helping people to connect back in with their heart and to release or dissolve those walls, those barriers, and help them to start feeling. And healing is messy. So, someone who comes to me, I sometimes I'll say to people, like, integration can be really hard. It's, I think people feel that they go to see a healer, they're going to have a session and walk away like they've had a facial and massage, and that they're going to come away feeling amazing. And that does happen because there's often a sense of feeling lighter because I've cleared a lot of emotions or a lot of, baggage or things that they've been carrying. But sometimes it will actually crack them open to a point where they now need to start processing their emotions. So there can be tears and there can be some heavy grief as well. But in terms of me and what I'm feeling, I will just keep going with whatever I'm guided to do in that moment. So if someone is on a table, for example, I will sometimes be guided to put my hand on their heart or their shoulders or their head or their feet. And I intuitively just move around. I make a lot of swishy noises. So that's how I clear the energy. I tone as well. I started to do these sounds, and I thought, oh my God, people are going to think I'm crazy. But now I realize that they're tones that come through Mother Earth, through my womb, and they just have this ability to help to shift a lot of energy. So I will use, light language. I will use my toning. I will do the swishy noises. Sometimes I'll actually, move my hands around. So there's a lot of different things that I can actually do or be guided to do just based on that person's needs. And clearing the blockages, that's just something that, again, it's just more of a claircognizant, clairsentient thing. I just know that I'm clearing. It's like a density or a heavier kind of feeling that I can sense. Sometimes I will do a session and someone can come in and I can feel this darkness, like it's like this, almost feel and sense and see this cloud like kind of hanging over people. And that's the first thing I do, is just kind of be able to just come along and clear that. And, even just doing that in itself can help that person just find that clarity. Because when we're in the fog and we're in that state of, depression or fatigue or just apathy, it is so difficult to do it for ourselves. We often need someone else to just give us a little bit of a helping hand.
Hello there. Just a quick one from me. If you're enjoying this conversation, the biggest thing that you can do to support the show is to hit the follow button if you're on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, and please do rate 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and give us a like. All of these things are completely free. They really support our growth, and they also make sure that you get notified of any new content that comes out, so you don't miss a thing. Also, if you're interested, you can follow Humankinder on Instagram at human_kinder, where I'm posting many different clips across different episodes and sharing content along the journey. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your listening. And now back to the show. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I want to acknowledge first the difficulty of articulating these subtle, invisible, intuitive tools, right? And also the bravery to speak those things as well and move into this space, because there has been a lot of ridicule and people who are scoffing at different things, like how could sound heal things, or, what do you mean by like moving energy and all these things. They're very, very cynical about this whole area until they have an experience themselves and until they actually start to feel those things. And we haven't been given a good map to understand our invisible. I think that's what the shamans of the world, the healers of the world, they're like cartographers of the invisible world. They're mapping it all out. And what you're saying is that sound isn't what we, on the human level, first perceive it as. It's not just this kind of thing that we hear. It's also got this vibrational frequency, which is interacting with all of the other different molecules around it. So we can use certain sounds to change frequencies. And if we're all energetic beings on the most subtle sense, then that means that everything that's coming in from a sound perspective is affecting us. The breath becomes something different. Breath has a different potential at that level. You know, you're talking about a lot about intention, right? And intention can just seem like a thought. But I'd love you to speak to a bit about what an intention actually is, like, and what is the power in setting and holding intentions here, or training powerful positive emotions. What effect do you see those things actually having on the energetic level?
So I think we're not really taught how powerful we are, and that when we start to live consciously, which is part of our, people call it an awakening, but I, kind of see it as just becoming aware and more conscious of everything that we do. And intentions are so powerful. So you can wake up in the morning and, choose, I'm going to embody my higher self today. And that in itself is a practice. It's, going to actually shift your entire day. And it's something that I teach a lot in my containers, is to really be mindful of every intention. And sometimes I forget. And I think, oh gosh, I didn't set my intentions today. And I'll realize that I haven't really been in alignment maybe as much as I usually would be. And so every morning, part of my practice is to connect to Mother Earth. I'm very connected to Mother Earth. And to me, really, I guess I call it God. Still, I grew up Catholic, so I still say God. And so, people can call it whatever they choose. But for me, the central sun is the Divine Father, and Mother Earth is the Divine Mother. And that to me kind of is what Source God is. And so I connect every morning to those energies, and I actually connect to my higher self, my I am presence. And I think this is what we're now starting to realize, that we are starting to embody more of our higher aspect of ourselves. And when we start to direct ourselves, the human, Martina, it's like we're training the human. We can start to say, like, show me how to heal this. Show me how to be better at this. It's as simple as that. And life will bring you the things that you're asking for. It will bring you a conversation in a supermarket that just seems to be like the right conversation. It might be something that you see on a reel on Instagram that is the information that you were looking for. So when you start to really sort of live in that space, I often will ask, like before I go to sleep at night, if I'm feeling really tired. And fatigue is something that we are really probably struggling with a bit more at the moment because of the amount of energy that we're receiving. So I often ask to, heal my body throughout the night, or place me in a deep sleep chamber at night. And when we ask and set these intentions, I believe like it happens. It's real. So the more intentional we are with everything we do, every time you pick up a glass of water, I don't do it every time, but I do try and ask the water to restructure itself and bless it, so that it is revitalizing and hydrating my cells. And I actually imagine my cells receiving the hydration from the water. So, that's powerful. But a lot of people don't even think to do that. They're sort of going along, just doing things without thinking and without the awareness or the conscious mind interacting with what they're doing.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that we're not actually taught how powerful we are because we don't really understand what a thought is, what an emotion is, what an intention is, what a sensation in our body actually is, what it means. We're not taught that the intuitive sense that we can get is something that we can trust. And we're often taught not to trust it. We're actually saying, don't trust your gut, don't trust your intuition, trust only logic, rather than seeing logic, imagination, gut senses, intuitive knowings as all part of our way of interacting with the world. And so if you were working with someone or you want to give someone advice about how can they start to open up to some of this invisible world inside themselves, where would you get them to start with?
I would probably suggest this connection with the higher self. So that's kind of one of the things that I often teach. If you're just starting out, I actually, when I started really working on that connection with my own higher self, I used to say, higher self, show me. And I would talk to my higher self like I was talking to a friend or, a teacher or mentor. And now I don't really need to do that. It's kind of, I feel like my higher self comes through me most of the time. So I have a different relationship with my higher self. But trying to learn, because a lot of people get confused between what is the ego mind and then what's the higher self. So it's trying to discern that can be quite a journey in itself. Most people are hearing their higher self so much more than they realize, but they're just not listening, or they're not aware of it, or they think it's just their imagination or their thoughts or, something else. So really establishing that connection with your higher self, your higher mind. And something that I say as well is if you say the words, I am presence, that is actually like a statement of you connecting to that higher aspect of you. So I say that a lot. And even before any of my meditations, I got this from Patricia Coder-Robles, who does some beautiful work in vlogs called Era of Peace. And she taught me in the beginning that when we say I am presence, and I am one with the I am presence of every man, woman, and child, we can invoke healing for the whole world. And so when I'm doing my group healings, I will do that. And I'm sending that out to everyone on the planet. So that would be probably where I would start first of all. And then just going back to intentions and getting used to practicing setting intentions every night and every morning.
So how can someone know then what is ego and what is higher self? Is there a way of discerning that a beginner could pick up?
So the easiest way that I can probably describe it is that the ego will often be very critical. You can tell when, like I used to beat myself up so much, and I had a really, really critical ego, and I grew up with a lot of criticism. So it was just, part of me that, I used to think that I was, wrong all the time, and, I was in trouble all the time. And so your higher self does not speak like that. So your higher self is that guiding force. It is loving. It is compassionate. And so that can be a really big indicator. If you start to hear a critical, negative Nelly, then that's your ego for sure. And if you start hearing a voice that sounds a little bit more compassionate, or, like a loving mother, or, it's a lot more angelic, a lot more patient. And it's not very often the guidance you get from your higher self is quite short. Like, it's not like they're going to say a whole load of sentences to you. It can be just as simple as, pick up your phone. So you kind of go, oh, like, why pick up my phone? So I will pick up my phone. My guidance is very it's very innate. So it's like it's comes from me, and I have now learnt to trust that and just go with it. So if I come up into the kitchen in the morning, for example, I might have I do actually have some supplements, and I have them kind of on my bench or my cupboard. I'll be very much guided through my body, through my actions, to actually take what it is that I need that particular day. So eventually it gets that clear and that natural. But in the beginning, it's a bit of a lesson in discernment. You've just got to play with it. And when you start to actually ask your higher self questions, you've got to be prepared to act on it. So if you say, is this for my highest good? If you're trying to decide whether to go to an event or something, and you say, is this what I need right now? And you get a no. You've got to actually act on that, because your higher self, wants you to actually trust it. And so you'll find if you don't act on it and you go, then something potentially, disastrous happens. And then you kind of go, oh, I should have listened. And that's usually how you learn. But when you start to act on it, it's like that relationship. It's a relationship like anything else. There's more trust that starts to occur within that relationship.
Yeah, it's trust, I think, is the most difficult part, at least for me, in trusting that inner voice and trusting that inner knowing, because I've been so conditioned for so long to be very disciplined and just create structures that I then follow whether I feel it or not.
Yes.
So exercise is a good example. It's like you're feeling resistance to it. It's like, just push past that. You're feeling resistance. You don't want to go to work. Push past that, And so like it's constantly actually going in, discerning what is in my highest good. And it's not just whatever's the easiest. It's not going to be what makes you feel comfortable. It's actually when you say love and you're seeking love and you're seeking truth, love and truth are not something that is soft and that just tells you exactly what you want to hear. Like if you really love someone, you will say to them the things that they do not want to hear, but they need to hear. And I think that's one of the things as well that people get a bit confused about, is that when you're communicating with your higher self, they're going to ask you to do really hard things. It's going to be like, oh, I really don't want I'm out of my comfort zone. Like it's going to be tricky. And I think one of the best ways I found of getting into that state, because I think getting into the right state is important, is to journal it, is to close your eyes, to just go in, take a few breaths, and then ask yourself, what would love do? Or what would my higher self, what would you have me do? What would you have me know about trust? What would you have me know about fear? And just trust what comes out of the pen.
Yeah.
Right? And you'll be very surprised at how compassionate and wise that voice can be. And so, I really just have so much empathy for myself, for yourself, for anyone who's on this space, who's waking up to this whole thing. And it's a whole different way of living your life. And you're maybe the first person in your community or the first person in your family who's ever really done this.
Yeah.
And they're all looking at you being like, this person's now going insane. Look, they're going to Bali and they're doing all these things, or they're going to these chanting events, or they're like, what? This person's lost their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned in your work, you do a lot of ancestral healing, and we share Irish ancestry. And I'd love to hear you speak on, some of the big things that come up with your clients that are going back into their ancestral line that really need to be let go of for them to step into who they want to be now.
Oh, yeah. I think, I often say if someone's just starting out on their healing journey, then ancestral healing is really a great place to start, because that's where a lot of our wounds actually come from. And when I was, in my 20s, probably particularly, I couldn't understand why I struggled so much. Like, why did I feel so much guilt and shame? Because it's not like I did anything that was that bad. I struggled with, how sensitive I was. I struggled with a lot of things that really didn't make sense to me. And I couldn't understand why is life so hard? And I felt like it was harder for me than others somehow, but maybe that's, everyone feels that. And it wasn't really until I started recognizing the effects of the people who've gone before us and how that is actually passed down generation to generation. And so if you can imagine what's happened in the world, you can imagine the amount of war and, famine and natural disasters. And, there's been so much on this planet that has actually been massively traumatic. We're actually born inheriting that trauma. And, there's a karmic aspect to this as well. So sometimes we actually have to work on something that our ancestors might have done. We're actually here to help kind of rewrite the balance of that as well. So looking at our ancestors, especially Celtic, there's a lot has happened in those lands in the past. And I think something that the Irish carry very, very well is a lot of guilt and shame. And so that's been a big part of my journey because I just couldn't understand why I kept carrying the guilt. And when I moved to Australia, which was almost 29 years ago almost, I believed that my parents made me feel guilty for leaving them. And I struggled, really for the last 29 years, I've struggled with the guilt of leaving my family behind. And at times that guilt and that sadness and sorrow and absolutely crucified me. It used to feel so enormous. And I realized that that's actually a lot of my ancestral baggage that I was carrying. And so I've now managed to be able to go back in and clear a lot of that. Financial struggles was another one. There's a lot of lack that comes even from the land in Ireland. There's a lot of density in the land in Ireland, and I think that's one of the reasons I had to leave because I was so sensitive. I think I knew as a teenager, I knew that I wasn't going to stay in Ireland. I remember saying to my friend at about 15 that I was going to travel the world, and wherever I liked the most, I was going to settle, and that's what happened. Didn't get to travel as much as I thought I was going to. Australia just grabbed my heart. But I think that knowing that I had this ancestral ties, it's like I almost had to come to the other side of the world to disconnect from that so that I could start to bring up my children, my two boys, in a different way. So they're first generational Aussie. And because I feel that that's my kind of my job was to really help with this ancestral healing, disconnecting completely for the last 29 years was the best way for me to do that. And so now that I've done a lot of that, now it's time for me to actually be able to go back.
Yeah, I think you're not alone in making that pilgrimage from Ireland to Australia. I think actually a lot of people leave Ireland to get the space that Australia offers. I'd be interested to know, what do you think it is about Australia that offers people from Ireland freedom? Why do we come here? Is there a deeper reason, do you think?
I can't really explain it, but I definitely feel like it was a spiritual calling for me. And I mean, I found one of my mentors here probably, maybe 16 years ago. And I often said that was one of the reasons why I came here. I started to wake up to spirituality more probably as soon as I arrived here. I remember reading, my auntie actually gave me a book on reincarnation, and I read that book and I was enthralled by the prospect of the possibility of reincarnation. And so straight away, I feel that disconnect from the Catholic, faith and that struggle that a lot of Irish Catholics have. Here, I think I had the freedom to completely disconnect from that and then actually open up to all the possibilities, because there were a lot more, it was a lot more multicultural back in 1996 when I arrived compared to what Ireland was. Ireland has become a lot more multicultural now, but when I left, there were very few other nationalities living in the town where I was from. So it was, there was a lot less choice. And nearly everyone that I knew was Catholic. So you'd know, the Protestant family down the road, they'd be sort of pointed at and go, they're Protestant. So when you arrive in Australia, it's not like that at all. People seem to be a lot more open-minded here. And it definitely, I felt less caged in, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Ireland is funny because you have some of the most spiritual and open and hippie and just out there community, and then some of the most kind of closed, reserved, not even going to entertain any of that nonsense. So on one hand, you're talking about fairy folk and the invisible, and you've got incredible mystical spiritual poets and authors. And then on the other hand, you have people who just would say that's all wishy-washy nonsense if they ever even came across it. Ireland's such an interesting place. And you mentioned karma, right? Which I understand as memory conditioning, the way that we are because of our genetics, our epigenetics, our ancestors' experiences, even to, how our bodies are shaped and everything. In the Hindu tradition, they talk about karma as that whole memory load, the memory of the whole universe down to the atomic level, right? And so the karma in Ireland, you mentioned, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of fear. What has been some of the biggest things in your life that you've had to pick through, and how have you gone about letting go of that heaviness?
So, probably the one thing that comes to mind is my relationship with money and lack. And it's not just money. It was probably lack in myself as well. I did not feel enough. I didn't feel good enough. And it's all connected. And so I had this lack mentality of every aspect of my life, I think. And so when I stepped into my work a few years ago, I lost my job and I had recently separated as well. And I went through a lot of financial hardship. And I remember, kind of literally sitting on the floor in my lounge room, just, kind of asking, I've done what I thought I needed to do. I've started my mission. I'm doing what you've asked of me. And why am I still suffering? And I was shown that I was here to help to clear some of the lack and the scarcity from Ireland, and that I needed to feel it. I needed to actually, and it's just making me really emotional just thinking of it, because at that time I couldn't understand what was going on. The sensations and the emotions and the pain that I was feeling were extraordinary. And I was very grateful to have a friend at the time who, I was bouncing off, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. I said, this is way bigger than just me. And this is when I realized that a lot of people often don't understand that they're processing things for other people or for their ancestors or for the land. And so something that we're going through in our life, we're going through it for humanity. We're not just doing it for just ourselves. And so this was one of those times in my life that I knew that I needed to be in that place of absolute lack, where I literally had to borrow money at one point. And the shame that I felt around that and asking for help was huge. And so I sat, and it took me probably a week to process what I was processing, but I was connecting to the land in Ireland. And through my vessel, which is something that I'm learning that I do. I was processing a lot of the lack and the scarcity from the land in Ireland. And so once I kind of came through that, then a lot started to shift. And it wasn't necessarily that I had to do anything. I didn't have to sit there and go, I need to heal myself or I need to do anything. I just needed to allow it to be processed through me, to be in it, to feel it, to not try and fix it, not try and figure it out. It was just, I had to actually feel it and feel the pain of it. And then eventually it all subsided. And then soon after that, I ended up, finding solutions to my financial problems and, all sorts of things happened. But through all of that as well, there was a lot of family drama that was happening. And so that led me to do the ancestral work as well. And so this is like where spirit guides us. It kind of forces us into a corner and it shows us exactly what we need to do. So had I not had that experience of that pain, I wouldn't have gone down that path to investigate and to figure out what I needed to do. So often my healing work is a result of my own pain, my own struggle, my own my own life. And so I'm very, very grateful now for that experience because it actually changed my life. Yeah.
Hello there. We'll get back to the conversation in just a sec. But first I want to share about something that's very close to my heart right now. And that is the whole area of purpose. I've struggled with purpose throughout my life, all the way from believing that everything was completely meaningless to really focusing on career and external achievements and feeling that purpose was in proving that I was worthy, to now really understanding that purpose does exist and it's about becoming fully ourselves. I've been working with the Soul Alignment Method and Miles Trainer, who's been a guest on this podcast, for the last number of years. And through that work, I've really learned how to uncover my own purpose, the elements of my own unique purpose blueprint, and now to help others do the same. And as part of Soul Alignment Method, the vision is a world where everyone knows who they are, why they are here, and can live it in this lifetime. This allows us to really make decisions that are in our highest alignment around career, around relationships, around lifestyle, location, and around our physical health and all the other areas of our life. Really brings this life to a whole other dimension. And as part of that vision, I would like to offer to listeners of this podcast a completely free or donation-based initial session for 90 minutes where we go deep and draw out from within the unique elements of your soul's purpose, your purpose blueprint. If this is something that's interesting to you, you can visit my website at www.humankinder.com.au and contact me there, or you can send me an email or go to the link tree in the description, which has all the links on my WhatsApp. You can also follow and message me on humankinder on Instagram, which is human_kinder. And I would absolutely love to work with you on this if it feels in alignment. Thank you. And now back to the show. Yeah, thank you for sharing that and for being vulnerable, because we take our pain very personally. It's like we've been trained to, one, suppress, not to feel those things, and then to be very closed in and individual about it and just take our pain, go away from everyone and just hide it and hold it. And it's the opposite of what is needed. And every single person is going through this experience. Everyone is here. They're having difficult experiences. They're having things that they need to heal. They're just not seeing it like that. They're seeing it as if there's something wrong that they need to fix. And even just the little technique or the process that you shared there, which is really just sit, go inward, and just feel what's coming up without wanting it to move, without wanting to push it away or to suppress it, or use your phone or take a drink, and just hold it in that loving presence, is an incredibly brave step, but something, as you said, that when that starts to clear and move, creates all this space for new things to come into your life. And I think that is actually the start of a spiritual journey, because it seems uncanny to me the amount of times that wound that you got, when you heal it and when you learn the lessons, when you start to understand it, you love it, you let it pass, and you then start to become free, it teaches you something that you can then go and help people in the world with. And so I'd be wondering if you see it that way, that the wounds that you had and the healing that you had to do has contributed to what you now want to do with people.
Oh, completely. Yeah. And it was somebody I met recently, lovely young Irish girl. She asked me, she said, "What advice would you have? I'd love to get into this kind of thing." She meant kind of, healing, energy healing. And I said, well, I said, often people will find the modality that they are here to bring through their own healing. So if, for example, you go to a breathwork session and all of a sudden breathwork changes your life, then often that's what births a breathwork practitioner, right? For me, it was energy healing. I went to my first energy healing session in probably my late 20s after I had 2 miscarriages. And I remember going into that session, I was full of grief and I just felt awful. And I left that session almost euphoric. And I was like, I didn't know what she did. She did some tapping things. And I just left going, I don't know what she did. I don't really understand what she did, but oh my God, like I want more of that. And so that showed me the path of energy healing. It wasn't until I started my own Celtic Heart and Soul, though. So I birthed Celtic Heart and Soul through my own journey with separating from my husband about 5.5 years ago. And then I lost my job and I was very much, I knew, I actually asked for divine intervention and I got it. And I knew it was time for me to start my work. And when they kind of said to forget the modalities you've learnt and just, use your own innate intuition, I was really scared. Like I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like what, my level of intuition I didn't feel was strong enough. I'm not as psychic or clairvoyant as a lot of the people in my sort of realm, like sphere, like my peers. And yet I just trusted. And through my journey, separating probably was one of the biggest things that I had to go through because I knew that I needed to end my marriage for a long time. But it was really difficult to do because I actually felt that our marriage was pretty good in so many ways, but it was holding me back. He just wasn't on the same path as I was. And so when I ended the marriage and became single for the first time since I was 22, I realized I had a lot of work to do. And so when I started my work, I started delving a lot into the masculine and feminine energies and relationships. So that was kind of where I started. And then I realized that I'm actually here to help with that masculine, feminine energy. I had an experience probably a few years ago where I actually, in one of my meditation sessions or my own healing sessions, I'm not quite sure, I actually had Jesus and Mary came to me and they said, "Here, we are giving you the templates of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and we want you to, kind of help with this because we've been so out of balance for so long." And so that's a big part of my work, and it was a big part of my own healing. Then I obviously started on the ancestral healing, so that's a huge part of my journey as well. And inner child healing was another component to my work because I realized I had to do a lot of inner child healing myself. So I was finding it was coming up in lots of sessions where I was starting to heal. I could just see people's inner child. Like I was like, "Oh, your inner child's here," and so it was just very innate and very organic. And And the same really with the masculine and feminine energies. I was doing a lot of womb work, and I could see people's divine feminine and masculine energies almost like another being within them. And I could see when they were out of balance or wounded. And so I was doing a lot of healing with that. Going back to your question, though, I think the biggest part of my journey has been the conditioning. And so if I'm here to help people to decondition, I was given a childhood and a life that was extremely conditioned. So being brought up Irish Catholic, I feel like I had to break free of that myself in order to be able to help people to break free from their conditioning. And that's probably, in a nutshell, the main crux of it all. And I can see now why I would have chosen in this lifetime to be born into a Catholic Irish family, and the patriarchy and the domination and the control and all of that. And also another aspect, because my mission is really about love. And when I asked what I'm here to do, put very, very simply, it is to anchor love onto the planet. And so in a meditation at one point, I remember seeing my soul, and my soul showed me that if you were here to teach love, then you had to experience the shadow of that. So I remember just bursting out into tears, going, of course, no wonder. I had to experience self-loathing. I had to experience the opposite of love, the shadow of love. And so for so long, I hated myself, and I, mistreated my body. I mistreated myself. I disconnected from my body. I was not compassionate. I was not loving to myself. And so now I am the opposite of that. And I'm still on this journey because, it takes a long time to decondition. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And you don't actually know how deeply conditioned you are almost till you begin. And my experience of it, at least, is the more you start to unpack your conditioning, the more you start to see its tendrils and its webs and the depths of it. And it's like these revelations start to come to you through your life's experience. I really relate to a lot of what you're saying about conditional self-worth, for example, a general sense that I'm always just a hair's breadth away from being in trouble, like this magical place called trouble that you can be put, and it's really bad. It's like in primary school growing up, you could be in trouble, and it's like just terror, right, of being in trouble or displeasing others. A sense that life is scarce and like life is very hard, and that the only way to keep the hardship at bay is just pure hard work. And I can see those patterns coming down from ancestrally through my parents and into my lifetime. But what about someone who's just starting to wake up to this? How would you know that you're carrying conditioning that's not yours, that's keeping you in a life that you really don't want to live for the rest of it?
So it's this feeling of being unhappy. It's discontentment. It's when your soul you just know that you're yearning for something and you can't quite put your finger on it. Like for a long time, it's like my soul knew. I knew that there was a much better way and much better life for me. And so I used to feel guilty about not being happy with what I had. And yet there was just something deep inside me that just kept saying to me, no, there's more. There's so much more to this. There's so much more for you. And I'm so glad that I listened to that and that I didn't push that away, because that was my soul being really honest with me and saying that this is not for you, this ordinary life. And I do believe that there's a lot of people now starting to realize that they're not happy with the 9-to-5 job, and they've got the 2.2 kids or whatever it is in the house and the car, and yet they're still not happy. So that's part of the waking up is going, well, actually, what is it that I really want? Like, who am I and what makes me happy? And so starting to actually question yourself, what makes you happy, without actually thinking about what you should do, what society tells you to do, what your parents tell you to do, what your wife or your husband tells you to do. It's actually, what is it that you really, really want? And so by then starting to delve into that, you just start to become aware of the programs of, for example, for me, people pleasing. I had no idea. I always thought that I was just a kind and generous person who liked to give, And when I started to see the pattern of my people pleasing and how much resentment that I was having for a lot of the things that I was saying yes to that were not in alignment with me, and the struggle that I had to learn to say no, my goodness. I used to think, oh, God, this is actually making me sound like a selfish bitch, And then I'm like, but no, it's okay. It's okay to say no to this. And like the pain of letting go of those versions of you is actually real. I actually say when we start to decondition and let go of those parts of us, there's like this ickiness that starts to kind of, you just feel this sense of ickiness, and I can't explain it any other way. You just feel out of sorts for a while. And it's because you're actually shedding, you're letting go of a version of you that you thought you were. And there's a bit of grief and there's a bit of anger, perhaps, or sadness that comes up with that as well. So I guess to go back to the question, it's about starting to question, what is it that you actually want in life and how do you want to live your life? Because we're all different. And if I have one wish for the entire world and a gift that I could give the entire world, it's just to say that I believe that we can live exactly how we want to live, that we can live where we want to live, with who we want to live, doing what we want to do, and actually finding that joy. It's a process to free yourself of all of the constraints and the resistance to that. When you start to really undo all of the conditioning and realize your full potential on this planet is to actually have everything that you want. Yeah.
One of the big core beliefs that comes up from me through, whether it's through Irish ancestry or whether it's just a human thing, is I don't deserve to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't deserve it to be easy.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be flowy. That life is hardship and that's just the way it is. And so those are the sorts of things that, until you start really questioning and asking your higher self to show you what's holding you back, you might not see them. And we've talked a lot now about kind of the ancestral dimension of healing. We've talked a bit about, the inner child, kind of going back and reparenting, giving that inner child the love that they didn't get, the understanding that they didn't get, through often no fault of the parents. Everyone's doing their best in this reality. It's not to blame or to judge anyone. It's actually to take responsibility for whatever patterns are there and say, that's what I was given, and this is actually an opportunity to learn. And so there's that inner child work. You've mentioned like working with belief, with intention, really feeling your feelings, working on the emotional level, going to someone like yourself if you want help around healing things, if you're just feeling this heaviness and this blockness. You also mentioned this masculine, feminine divide, though, and I'd love to dive a bit more into that aspect of the healing, because men are not doing well right now. We know by every stat you can imagine under the sun that men are not doing well, from suicide rates to depression rates to just generally when you meet people, you can see like a woodenness or a heaviness or a kind of resignedness of like, so exhausted and this is really hard, but I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
And then also women have gone through an interesting journey where there's been a lot of empowerment from the feminist movement we've got to a certain point where now there's a lot of women really successful, and yet there's a lot of women who are deeply unhappy as well. We're struggling to find relationships. Young women not doing particularly well either. So it seems like we're struggling on both sides right now. And so I'd be interested to hear about what you see with clients around this masculine and feminine inside themselves. And maybe we could start with women. What are the big things that come up in this dynamic?
So I feel that the feminist movement has done so much damage to women, and that it's like even on our own healing journey, sometimes the pendulum kind of swings from one extreme to the other. So if I take the people pleasing, for example, it's like, you kind of go from people pleasing to almost being super selfish and saying no to everything. And it's kind of, you have to bring it back into balance. When the feminist movement started, it probably meant well, and it is true that I think women needed to have more of a voice, and that they were suppressed, and they were, stopped from having a voice and jobs and all sorts of things. And so things needed to change. But what happened was women were told they could have everything, and they could do it all, and they could raise a family and work and have a career and, the husband and do everything. And so I feel like women are exhausted, and it has had an impact on the men, because then the men now feel like a lot lost as well, because their role has almost been made redundant, because they were always the ones who were the providers, and they were here to support the woman, and so women and men are very lost. And with all of our healing, it's always these energies that are, everything is within us. So if someone says to me, I just feel so unsupported, by my man, it's like, okay, well, let's have a look at your masculine energy. Where is your masculine energy at? Because obviously either you're feminine or masculine, they're feeling unsupported. So I actually work on the energies within that person, to ask, what is it that you need more support with? So I will have a conversation with the feminine aspect and say, okay, what is it that you need? And they'll say, I just need more support from my man. And so we'll say to I'll say to the masculine then, okay, what is it that you need to be able to support the feminine? And they'll say, I just want acknowledgement. I just want, I want to be acknowledged. I want to be seen. So it's like, okay, so we work on those energies within the person, to really figure out where the imbalance is within that person. And so when you start to heal that feminine aspect and heal that masculine aspect and bring them back into, it's what I call the original template of women and men. And that's what I feel we're on the way back to, is we want to get back to the original template, the pristine blueprint of what a female and a male should be. And that's going to take some time. It's going to take some time to get things back to normal again, because women they've stopped receiving. And when men are not needed, they really feel the pain of that. Men need to be needed. And so women are finding it really hard to receive from a man, and yet it's what their soul is yearning. So there's just this real disconnect and confusion that's happening between men and women.
So there's a couple of dimensions there. So you're talking about this masculine, feminine inside a person, and then you're also talking about the person to person masculine, feminine relationship. And then I'd imagine there's a relationship between a person's feminine and the other person's feminine, and then the person's masculine and the other person's masculine, and there's the balance between the two of them. And so there's many different aspects to this dichotomy. And so what you first described was, inside a woman, say, if they're not feeling supported, you'd first look at the masculine side of that woman and say, what is not happening there? So maybe they're not being supportive enough to themselves. Is that what you're saying? Is
yes,
in that sense?
Yes.
So they're giving, they're doing, but they're constantly saying, I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not.
Because the relationship in the physical, so if you're looking at a man and a woman, maybe a husband and wife, their relationship is a reflection of their inner relationship with themselves. And so, for example, that going back to that unsupported, because it's just a really easy, common one. It's often if I was, say, to feel unsupported, I go, okay, where am I not supporting myself? Where is my masculine not supporting me? Where and I worked a lot on this. Trust was another one. I didn't trust my masculine, and so realistically, I wasn't trusting myself, and that was having an impact on my relationship. And I could see when I kind of left my marriage, I could actually see how the dynamic of it was happening and how my lack of trust in my own self was actually me not trusting my husband to support me financially. And so there was a lot of kind of extra things going on with all of that, but that's kind of it in basic terms. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascinating way to look at it. And it actually feels, on the first reading of it, kind of offensive. It's like, so you're telling me that because that person's not giving me what I need to look inside myself first. And I think that can be hard for the ego to swallow. And it doesn't also mean that the other person is not transgressing in a certain way. It just means, as I'm reading it, that look inside yourself first and see what's out of balance inside yourself. And then once you've actually done work to right that and bring yourself back into balance, then you can work with the other person from a place of being really clear on what it is you actually need and where the boundary is without projecting into their experience.
Yeah.
And my experience of doing that is that when you do that work on yourself, it creates the space for the other person to also open up to do the work on themselves. But if you go from a place of out of balance into their experience and try and change them in a way, you're going to just end up with more resistance.
Yes. And I think that's what I tried to do for a long time, was I tried to change him. And then I stayed a lot longer than I probably needed to, but there was a time where I had to question if my frustration was with myself or with him. And so I really had to be very mindful that maybe if I did the work, then things would be okay. So I did the work, and then I realized that, really there was a soul contract thing at play as well. So there was more depth to it. But I felt that when we decided to end the relationship, the reason we were able to be so amicable was because it was the right thing to do. And so by then I was very kind of sure that that it was time for me to go my separate way. Yeah.
It's it can be a really sad thing with this whole work to see relationships wither and fade away and pass on. And yet it's such a natural part of the journey. And that's something that I have wrestled with a lot, is this desire for loyalty and just keep friends, relationships, romantic, keep those things going and just keep pouring in. It's like in the Irish culture, it's like divorce is not an option almost, right? Because it's a sin against God, first of all. But also, what would everyone say? And then what would I do? How would I how would I find someone else? Am I even enough for someone else to even love me?
Yeah.
And so there's all these dynamics that have us clinging on to older relationships without allowing them to come and then also go. And and acknowledging that that's a very normal part of a life. It's not something that's actually wrong. So that's a fascinating area. I wanted to just help give the listener a bit more of a sense of this masculine-feminine dynamic, because it's something I'm very interested in too. I know a lot of people are waking up to these two parts of themselves. If you were going to categorize what are some of the things that the feminine part of you brings to the situation, and what are some of the things that the masculine bring to the situation, so that we could look inside ourselves and say, oh, actually, I'm not bringing that part enough, or I'm bringing too much of this? And
so again, it is quite a big topic, and I think going back to the healing of it, first of all, I just want to bring this up, is that often our relationship with our feminine and masculine is to do with our own relationship with our parents. And so that has a big influence on how our inner masculine and feminine are structured, I suppose, how they are. And so the feminine is meant to receive for a start. We are meant to be more of a being energy rather than a doing energy. And for a very long time, I was in my masculine, in my kind of wounded masculine. I was doing. I had this kind of struggle, strive, push energy, which was very masculine. And I wasn't really allowing my feminine just to be, to rest. I had also this idea that I had to work really, really hard. So I chose hospitality as a career for 15 years. And so I really wasn't in my feminine enough. So it's interesting, when I left my husband, I actually, about 6 months afterwards, I think I literally chucked out most of my wardrobe and I started buying dresses and wearing dresses. And I realized that was kind of almost an external sign of how I was starting to heal my feminine and embody more of my feminine essence by how I dressed. So I stopped doing so much. I started to rest more. I realized that I actually had burnt out a lot more than I thought. I didn't realize I'd reached burnout. And I'm still recovering, to be really honest, with my health and what I had kind of, I was on the brink, I think, of complete burnout. I reckon if I had not stopped and made the changes that I changed, I probably would have gone down the road of chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. It actually has taken its toll on many, many, many women. I believe that this whole having the career and looking after the kids and looking after the home and all of that, we're not meant to be doing as much. We are cyclical as well. And so we are meant to kind of go through our monthly cycles in a certain way. And there are weeks where we can be more productive and weeks where we can be, more restful. We don't honor that really in this society. We're meant to be kind of doing 52 weeks of the year. We're not even going through the spring, summer, winter kind of cycles either. The masculine energy is about structure. So for example, even in my business, I'm sometimes too much in my feminine and I just want, oh yeah, like it'll be all right. I'll just, I'll just be and everything will get done. And then I realize I actually have to do some work on my website and I actually have to, do some marketing and I actually have to pay bills and I actually have to, organize my events and book things and do all of that sort of stuff. So I will actually sometimes speak to my masculine and say, all right, I need you to actually, step up now. I actually need my masculine to kick in gear a bit and to do those structural things. So it's a dance, it's a balance. It's kind of wanting to be the mixture of both and knowing when to be in my feminine and when to be in my masculine. I have some relationships that have kind of shown me the changes as well. So, for example, I have a beautiful neighbor downstairs, and he moved in about 6 months after I moved into my apartment, and we started this friendship. But he started to help me with things like putting pictures up on the wall, and my washing machine broke at one point, and he managed to fix it for me, and I was like finding it really challenging at the time because I was so used to being this independent woman who didn't need a man, who I could do everything myself and, I don't need a man. And all of a sudden I was like, no, Martina, it's okay. It's okay for me to receive from a man. he actually loves to help me. And in this exchange, I'm helping him by allowing him to give me and do something for me. And so he feels needed. And then I also get to receive from the masculine. And that was really, really challenging for me in the beginning. And then I had other examples where, like a man might buy me a drink. And I remember at one point, the man came back from the bar and he poured my mineral water into a glass for me. And I was kind of like feeling really almost uncomfortable about that, because the old version of me probably would have gone to the bar and got my own mineral water and then sat down and poured it myself. So I hope that kind of gives you a little bit of an everyday relatable sort of aspect to it.
Yeah. And what about the male side then? Like, what are you seeing is the opportunity for men to grow and evolve? Because I see that the way that it's now being structured with women stepping much more into the masculine, and I can see how that can be overdone, right? But yet I'm hearing a big call for men to step more into the feminine side as well, and to rebalance that for themselves, and to come home to their own emotional landscape, their own ability to receive, their own ability to just be as well. And I worry sometimes that there's a certain core of people who want very conservative, let's just go back to the way it was, mum stayed at home, dad went and worked, it wasn't perfect, but it worked, and we just need to go back to that. And what I'm actually seeing is that we need to evolve beyond that. There must be a new paradigm in which this can come into balance, but it's not coming into balance in a way that's killing the soul of both sides. Because like for some women, of course, it really lights them up to be at home and make the home and have kids, and they absolutely love it. But for other women, they don't. Like, they do really want to go out and do and have impact on those and have large careers and do all those things. And in order for that to happen, there has to be an evolution on the male side as well. And I'm wondering what your perspective is on that.
So, men have been taught to not feel, to not cry, and to toughen up, and not express your emotions, and communicate how you feel. So I think that's something that men are starting to now open up to, this aspect of them, that it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to share, it's okay to cry. And again, with everything, I think that in doing this, sometimes it goes the opposite end of the scale. So I think that there are probably some men who are experiencing deep, deep emotions because they've suppressed it for so long, and crying a lot. And, I think that's part of the healing journey, is all of a sudden when the floodgates open, the heart opens, and you start to connect to these emotions, it can actually be quite difficult to navigate. So, yeah, coming back to balance, I think the biggest part of the difficulties that we have is a lack of community. So I think this is something that we are going to go back to, is that whole, it takes a village, because when I had my children, I didn't have family nearby. My sister was here and I used to see her occasionally, but that was it. So I had two kids, 18 months apart, and I was basically doing everything myself. And had I been in a community, it would have been so much easier for the children, for the man, for the woman. But we're kind of trying to do it all on our own, each nuclear family, and having two parents working, it doesn't really work, because, again, corporate jobs, this whole 9 to 5, the 40-hour working week, I think is a complete disaster. I've been saying for years that I think we should have a 4-day working week. I think it would change the entire planet. Like how different everyone feels when there's a long weekend. Like the extra joy and kind of vibe is completely different on a long weekend to a normal week. And I think, unfortunately, we we don't have enough time to devote to our relationships, to our children, to our hobbies, to our own internal healing. It takes time and practice. And when we're kind of in this 9 to 5 grind, often people working overtime and then commuting an hour or two here and back, it's really, really hard for men and women to kind of come back into that balance. I mean, can you imagine if both women and men worked 3 days a week? It would completely change the family dynamic.
Yeah, it is a dream that I have is to bring in that new world. And there's a part of me that cynically looks at that and goes, well, that's not possible because you hard work and you need to and all these things. And I think that because of the way it's currently structured, there's so much money being siphoned off the top and away from ordinary people that it's really contributing to this continuous having to hustle and grind and go. And something needs to happen there in terms of how capitalism evolves. And so I know there are a lot of people working in that space. Same as a lot of people feel like you working in the healing space, like me, I'm working in that space a bit as well, and also in the podcasting and sharing ideas. And between all of us, something new is coming. And it's starting to emerge in the conversations people are having, the sheer amount of people who are waking up to these things, the balance of the masculine, the feminine, the ancestral healing work, the inner child work, the really connecting with themselves and saying, I deserve to be happy. It's not just a life sentence for me to feel miserable and work in a job that I don't like. I don't have to do this. And so I feel something huge coming, and it's already happening kind of in the hearts and minds of people everywhere that I speak to. So I'd love to hear your view on that. I mean, this podcast is Humankinder. It's about what's possible for humankind. And what do you think is possible for this world that we live in and for this society and for people in it?
This topic excites me so much because, I am a visionary, and I think my dad used to always say to me, "I'm a dreamer, and I live in a fantasy world." And I now realize that I really do. I always have. There is this element of me that's always had one foot in the limitless possibilities into a whole other what's possible for humankind. And I remember connecting to Mother Earth one day and, having the realization that she provides everything that we need. And yet there's still so much, poverty and, there's people going hungry, and like the world is so out of balance. And, the dream that I have is that we can come back into a life, a world where we are creating from our innate purpose, our gifts. So if you can imagine, even on a smaller scale, a community where you bring people together that all have different gifts and different skills, and that everyone starts to do what it is that they are good at and what it is they're here to share with the world, their contribution to humankind. So you might have someone who's doing the gardening and growing the vegetables. You'll have someone who's cooking. You might have another healer. You might have a carpenter. You might have a builder. You have someone who loves children, who's taking care of the children. It's about having humans figure out what it is that they're innately here to gift to the world, to contribute to the world, and then figuring out a way to have an exchange for that. So whether it be a barter system where, you do something and you get something else in return, I really do think we're eventually going to come completely away from the whole money system eventually. But we have enough of everything on the planet, and we have enough people to do everything that we need to get done on the planet. And it's almost like everyone is now just going to start stepping onto their kind of purpose to know what their gift is and then monetize it, or, make some way of being able to live, or, have all the things that they need. So for me, I don't feel like I need a lot. Like I live a very simple life. I'd actually be happy in a tiny home on some beautiful land. I think that's probably the most important thing for me, is to be somewhere beautiful in nature, and just have enough food and have some people around me that I love. That's all we need, really. And if we can, and to do my work, like, I've had to kind of do other things in my life that I haven't enjoyed. And all I want to do is to be able to offer my gift to the world and to help people. And so by doing that for me will be the most fulfilling, amazing life that I can create for myself. And if you find what it is that you are here to contribute to the world, which I think you're already doing a great job of, then you will be rewarded for that. And, the 3-day working week is so possible. I definitely believe that is a paradigm that we need to change. And that is a limiting belief. And if we can believe, honestly, there are people out there making enough money doing 3 or 4 hours work a week. There are people doing it, and it's so possible. So, yeah, can you imagine like a world that starts to, where everyone's just contributing in their own way, their own light, their own frequency, without all of the conditioning and the societal shoulds and shouldn'ts. And yeah, it just really lights me up when I start to think about a world like that.
Yeah, the same. And it almost is like a dream that for a long time we've been scared to talk about, because it feels like a fantasy. And I think the reason it feels like such a fantasy is because people go, well, who's going to take the bins out? Who's going to do these things? Who's going to... And actually, when you look at that dynamic, the only reason why that is such a horrible job in people's eyes is because we demean it so much and we pay so little, and we force people to only do that, and that's all they do. The same way as if you were a brain surgeon and all you do is brain surgery every single day and you're worked to the bone. Now you get massively financially rewarded, so we go, that's really high status. But there are a lot of people in those roles too that are miserable because they're burnt out and they want diversity. So there's something about diversifying the different areas of life that you operate in that will start to bring more of a balance. And if we had a brain surgeon, right, this is a little experiment. If you had a brain surgeon who for 3 days a week was like, I want to do brain surgery, then on the other 2 days, I want to get out and about and be in community and be of service and go and do things, I might jump on and do some work on the bins. It's like, it's just so much of our social construct is that we have created these rough, bad jobs, like working with your hands, being on the ground, you know what I mean? Like digging the field. It's not necessarily that these things are inherently suffering. It's the way we've constructed things. And the biggest thing that has to shift is our level of consciousness. And why I see the healing work as so important is because that pain that people are in becomes the catalyst for them to raise their consciousness, to go in and start doing the work. Say, I just cannot exist like this anymore. I cannot handle it anymore. What do I need to learn? And inevitably, what we've discussed today is when you treat someone to heal them, you're actually treating the whole person. You're looking at all the dimensions of their life, which you're doing so beautifully, and saying what's happening in your internal masculine, feminine, what's happening in your relationships, what's your inner child doing, what emotions are you feeling, what thoughts are you thinking, what intentions are you holding or not holding. And when you address that whole framework, then the health just, boom, it goes up. And so there's something here in this new world about really looking at the whole of a human being and helping them develop the skills, like we've talked about today, the inner skills to work with that part of themselves, so that then their external manifestation of who they are can be someone who's spreading more love in the world, who's spreading more joy, who's helping others. Because the ironic thing is when you do the work on the inside, you don't need all the things that you thought you needed.
No.
So there's so much energy released. You don't need the massive house. You don't need the car. You don't need to have the status. You don't need the art hanging on the wall. You don't need those things. And it's actually a little bit ironic that the more you work on yourself, the less you need. Whereas we think now, the more I work on myself is the more I can get. You know, and as you go through that journey, you start to lighten up and let go of all those things and create a lot more space for others. So I think the first pit, the first stop is with someone like yourself who's helping people heal. Because that's the key, actually. That's the key. And so, yeah, interested if you've got any reflections or any thoughts on that.
So when I think about my work, I think about my children, my two boys, who are now adults. They're almost 19 and 20. And I see the effects that my work on myself has had on them. And I see, future grandchildren, hopefully someday, and the kids. And that's my legacy. So if we can create a society that births children to parents who are in a healthy, loving relationship and who are conscious enough and aware of enough and have done their healing work, the ripple effect is incredible. And we're going to have these children that are going to come and completely change this world, like so much more than we think we're doing. We think we're doing a lot right now. And we're doing a lot of good. But the children that are coming, the frequency that they are, and the souls that are coming through, especially from parents who are in alignment, they're the ones who are here to change the world. And that's the legacy that I want to leave. I want to be able to be on my deathbed, whenever that may be, and to know that I've had an impact on the world in some way, and that that my sons can see the impact that I've had, and that my grandchildren and great-grandchildren possibly can say, gosh, my mother, my grandmother, she left a legacy. And I think that word legacy really stays with me a lot. And I think, that's just what I'm here to do. I just know that I'm here to birth something to help people to realize the potential that we have, and to be someone who's like that lighthouse, right? That's showing the way. And my journey is only just beginning. I'm only at the very, very, very beginning of my journey. And I feel that the next few years for me are going to be living and breathing everything that I've just shared with you, to really start living in that way of no limitations and trusting that everything is possible. And by me living my life in complete freedom, doing whatever the hell I want to do, traveling, meeting people, having opportunities, sharing my work, sharing my gifts, and just living in alignment, then it's by me living that I will help others to see that it's possible. So, yeah.
Yeah. Your purpose is you, is how I would summarize that. Like, to be fully yourself in all of your weirdness and all of your interest and all of your curiosity and lightness and humor. It's like, it's actually what we're here to do, is to figure out what that is and follow it. Follow our intuition. And the more you do that, the more dimensions of yourself open up, and you then inspire other people to do it. And you attract the people and the events that are going to try and close you down and stop you. And some of that comes from inside yourself as well. It's like, oh no, but I couldn't do that. That's not possible. Surely not. And I'm in that transition myself right now, and I can feel so strongly that inner voice of, no, that's not possible. Or, oh, you couldn't do that, or that's frivolous even, or it's just something that could never work. You're like, yeah, that's a nice dream, but it could never work. And so I'd love to hear if you have something to say to someone now who's waking up to this a little bit and they're starting to dare, they're starting to dream, what advice would you give them so that they can continue to unfold into more of themselves?
So I love what you just shared. And I think that I'm also going through a big expansion right now, and it's brought up lots of my fears and woundings and everything all over again. So I think it's when the fear comes up, just know that you're on to something. You're really on to something when the fear comes up, and that you know that when you start to push through this fear, that's where the next level of expansion is coming. And so I think, people talk about fear a lot. And one thing that people often say to me is like, you're so brave, you're so courageous. And so I think that's one of my gifts is I don't know where it comes from. I surprise myself at times. I look back and I think, God, I don't know how I've done what I've done and had the courage to do what I'm doing right now. I'm in the process. You should see my apartment right now. I'm in the process of selling everything I pretty much own to pack 2 suitcases and leave and go back to Ireland. And it's a whole other level of fear. And yet on the other side of that, a whole other level of freedom. So it's to keep going through the fear. When you face fear, that's when miracles happen. I remember speaking to someone before I started my business about facing a fear that I had at the time. And the anxiety that I was feeling, I didn't really, I haven't experienced much anxiety in my life. I get the nervousness and butterflies and whatever occasionally, but this was like this gut-wrenching kind of feeling in my stomach that I'd had for a couple of weeks, and it just wouldn't go. I couldn't understand where it was coming from, what I was doing. But there was a level of fear that I had that was so high that I was almost feeling sick. And I remember one day just making the decision, because I had to make this decision, and I made this decision. And this decision, to be honest, has changed the trajectory of my life. It was about me stepping onto my mission and my purpose. And once I made that decision, the anxiety went. And all these doors started to open for me. I started to meet people. My whole life kind of opened up and changed in ways I just didn't expect. And so that taught me a huge lesson on facing your fears. And the bigger the fear, the more the reward. So just keep on facing those fears. Just find the courage. Ask your ancestors. Your ancestors are all around you. They're asking you to help. Like, they want you to ask them for help. They're there to help you with the courage. And just find that courage, whatever it is, wherever it is, it's in there. And just go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And the opposite of fear in many ways is that trust. It's the faith that if I leap and I follow what's in my highest and what's in my deepest intuition, that life will catch me. And I've spoken to enough people now who have done it to know that it happens. And it's not just a dream, or it's not a fantasy. And if there's anything to be afraid of, it's that on your deathbed, you'll be one of the people who says, I wish I lived a life true to myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wish I wasn't so afraid.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't worry so much.
Yeah.
And that is what actually you should be afraid of. And that is what the majority of people say when they get there. And it's just to not be that. I think that's something worthy of striving for.
Yeah. And the fears as well. Often we manifest our greatest fears because we have this fear. So, it's like I don't have home and contents insurance anymore. I used to always, do it. And I was like, it's just a belief. Like if I have faith that my apartment is protected and that, I don't need house insurance. So a lot of people can't get to that point where they completely surrender to things like that because, again, we've been told to fear so many things. So many people have health insurance and house insurance and things like that because it's always like, oh, but what if something happened and what if, I got this and what if that? And it's like, well, just trust. The more you can let go of the fears and just trust that you're going to be okay, the more you'll be okay.
Yeah, whatever that fear is for you, whatever that version, whatever way it's manifesting, go into it. I love that. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to share on?
No, I can't think of anything. Nothing's popping up.
Lovely.
I think we've covered quite a lot of the aspects that I probably, would have shared. So, it's been wonderful.
Yeah, it's been a beautiful conversation. And if people are feeling called to reach out to you and to know more about you, find out more, work with you, where would you point them?
So I started a monthly membership in June, and part of this was my preparation to leave Australia. And I don't know, I'm stepping into the unknown. I have no idea how long I'm going to be gone for. And I don't really know what's on the other side. So I felt like this was a really beautiful thing to offer because when I was on my healing journey, I felt very alone and I didn't really have a container or a group or anything like that. And I did a lot of one-on-one sessions with my healer and mentor. And also I find that it's expensive, right? I mean, when you start to really invest in yourself, it can be really expensive. So I wanted to have something that I could offer that was affordable for the majority of people. So this membership is a monthly membership, and I'm going to be sharing my journey from wherever I land. I don't really know exactly where I'm going. First stop's Bali, hopefully Egypt, and then Ireland. And so I will be sharing videos, what I call transmissions, because, through even this podcast, we're emanating codes and we're emanating a frequency. And so it's more than just a conversation. This is us actually emanating our unique soul signature frequency. And whoever listens to this podcast will receive that and potentially be activated in some way. So, if this conversation has resonated with people, I would probably go first to look at the Heart and Soul Collective and then see there's healings in there. I've got a healing vault with lots of recordings in there, and I add at least one, if not two, recorded healings in there every month. I'm also about to start my new program, which is called She Rises, and it's for single women. So really wanted to help people on the journey that I've just been on. So those women who are probably either midlife, perimenopausal, potentially coming out of a very long-term relationship, trying to find themselves again and to go through the healing journey that I've just been on to heal that masculine and feminine energy, inner child, ancestral healing, all the things that pretty much I've just shared with you. And that starts at the end of November. And so I'm very excited about that as well. That's a 9-month program. So that's kind of the two main things. I have digital library on my website as well. And I also do Akashic record healings as well.
Nice. Well, yeah, I want to say best of luck in the journey and yeah, I'm excited to see and keep in touch with where you go and what you get up to. And I can certainly feel from today's conversation like a sense of vibrancy and hopefulness and purpose, and that is the opposite of what I'd imagine you were experiencing 10, 15 years ago. And that in itself is really part of the prize, because we get so obsessed with like, what are we going to do? Like materially, what's the program? How are we going to support ourselves? All of these things, like this podcast, who's it going to reach? All that. It's actually, wait a minute, in the living of it, in the doing of it, in the being of this is the prize, because this is you actually doing the thing that lights you up and living the life that lights you up. And when it's all said and done, all you will have is that experience. You won't have the things in the house, the objects that you own, that you sold, the suitcases that you brought. None of that will be there. But who you have become through this journey will be there at the end. And I believe will go on to something else. And so that's really the prize in the journey. So thank you for allowing me to be part of that. And yeah, best of luck in everything that you do going forward.
Thank you. It's been so wonderful just to have the opportunity to be here. So, without you and, your dream of launching this podcast, I can just see the impact that it's going to have by bringing all the people that you need to bring into your podcast and sharing their work, the impact that will have. So it's pretty amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And if anyone is listening to this and they're like, I'm a bit weird too, and I like to talk about like spirits and soul and different things, and like, then and you hear that, and this gives you the courage to look more into it and get more into it and uncover more of who you are, then I mean, that's it right there. That's the win.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
thank you very much.